Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and today we have the extraordinary privilege coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, eminent classical guitarist John Martin. Welcome, John.
Hi, Alfred. Great to see you again.
Thank you. For those viewers who know, and for those who may be joining us, John Martin is an extraordinary classical guitarist, really one of the most eminent in the United States, who has performed for President Carter and President Ford, and as well as Vice President Gore in Atlanta. And he has had private mutual discussions with former President Jimmy Carter about their mutual UFO encounters, each in different ways. And as many of you know, John has joined us here on Exopolitics TV on prior occasions to discuss the telepathic and visual interactions that he has with interdimensional intelligent craft and civilizations over Atlanta when he plays, or as he plays, Bach and other classical music. And there's a lot of back and forth there. So John is here again to update us, I think, on a very, very significant time. Today is Wednesday, July 13th, 2016. 2016 being a very significant day. President Jimmy Carter, in my personal opinion, having been well, I'll just say it, the director of the proposed Jimmy Carter White House, 1977 Jimmy Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, and Jimmy Carter having reported his own UFO encounter in 1973 while he was running for governor of Georgia. And that occurred in 1969 as he was entering the Leary, Georgia Lions Club in the presence of all of the other members, where he saw a UFO that he says was as large as the moon. So I'm very glad that John is able to join us again, and at this very crucial moment, I think, in the, shall we call it, the Commonwealth life of the United States. I turn it over to you, John, to bring us up to date as to what our friends in the interdimensions are saying.
Well, since we last spoke, Alfred, I've continued what I've done now for the last 3+ years. Is not only do I play guitar out on my deck and project positive thoughts into the universe, and I had almost immediate results, as we discussed before. I also go out at night without my guitar, and I play these same pieces in my mind. And so as I'm performing these pieces in my mind, I'm also projecting this same sort of the positive aspect of music, and I think sort of the higher aspirations of humanity. And the multidimensionals recognize that, and they've been over to my home many dozens of times. And there's new kinds of multidimensionals that have come. One of the more dramatic, this happened last week, and he's been here, or she's been here a number of times. And I'll also be performing in my mind, and And I'll demonstrate after a while. I'll play a little guitar, then I'll do the same thing with my mind, and I'm not sure if it will translate here, but we'll see.
Right.
The orbs that come in, there's, as I said, a bright flash of light, or like a shooting star, and then here they are, and they worked their way across, and one came and kind of took my attention from one side of the sky. This is all out in my courtyard. And it just went about 30 degrees and then just disappeared. And at that same spot, in a complete blank sky, a very bright light went like that. So it was something that came into our dimension and pulled right back out. And I didn't think it was quick. It was like that. And so I wasn't sure I saw it. So I kept looking, and then it had traversed. You couldn't see it. It was completely blank sky, and it did it again about 10 degrees further. And it did that all the way across the sky. And that demonstration of technology and what they're capable of is, to me, that was really a special event when they did that for me. And they did it again last week. And sometimes even when I walk out, they're waiting. And sometimes it takes an hour or more, not much longer. This week I hadn't been out because we had bad weather for a few weeks. And not a few weeks, but probably 8 or 10 days, overcast. It has to be sort of a clear sky. If it's overcast, it doesn't. I've tried it, and it doesn't really work very well. Although this one, if it's sporadic clouds, you kind of came in and out of a cloud a few times, because this pulsing one has been here probably 6 or 7 times. And it had been a few months, probably 3 months since I saw it, but it did it last week in that same way. And I'm not sure exactly if they're a different kind of craft, or if it's the same craft demonstrating different technology or way to come into our dimension, but it's pretty incredible to witness.
Right. Now, what are the as this technology is happening, is there also kind of an emotional or an emotive connection, or a spiritual or kind of a soul connection that is going on aside from the technology, or also a telepathic connection going on?
It's more of a feeling within myself. It's very positive. It's very. I'm very pleased. I'm very happy when I see it. I haven't had an actual manifestation of any sort of a voice coming to me, but the feeling itself, Alfred, is incredibly positive. And when I see them, you smile, and they're my friends. Hey, and how are you? Sometimes, like, I'll be walking my dog, and if I miss them, because there'll be one this way, he'll flash, so I look up. And so it's very responsive. You know, it knows if I'm there or not, or if I miss it, because I try to think, what logistically must they have to do to know when I'm out there, and to come at the beckon of my suggestion or my request. How that works, that's a part of this that is, to me, it's kind of bogs the mind a little bit on where they're coming from, how they're doing it. I had one, Alfred. This was one of the most special, I think. But I was out and walking my dog, and there's a road right across from the courtyard that goes across both of our side and their side of this little subdivision we're in. I was walking my dog, and the moon was on that side, and a golden orb came and flashed to get my attention, and it came back, and it went all the way across the road very slowly, and then disappeared, and then one went powered on, and it just slowly did a promenade right over my head. And it was just so amazing to see. And then on that side, there was a single engine plane about at the same altitude. And they were heading towards each other. I said, "You better watch out." And they diverted. So, but I would have thought surely that person saw this, unless the light is directional towards me, which I think is a possibility. I don't know. But that one, it was just such a wonderful display. It was very, very important to me.
Well, you just asked a very interesting couple of questions, and that is, how do they track you, and did that plane see it? And of course, this is all this is all speculation, but we have a little bit of research now because we know a bit more about what we call the dimensional ecology, because we're inside of an ecology of dimensions. We're in sort of what we call the third density of time space, and that's you can think of them as sort of those Russian nesting dolls in a certain way.
Right.
It's very hard to use third density language to express this. The holographic. Now, because the source is non-local, that it's located outside of time space, tracking you they aren't tracking you inside of time space. So it's not, quote, thinking like you.
Of course.
However, I remember you saying, and I'm just wondering that you have had and you have seen lights that have been seen by others in the Atlanta area. So have you been able to distinguish some lights where only you see that, and then other lights that perhaps other people see it as well as you?
Well, there's a few instances. The MUFON president here in Georgia, I've had an open invitation for him to come over here for 2 years. He's the one that did the first recordings of my first sightings, and he never really took me up on it. But he had this was about 3 months ago, he had a sky watch in Athens. I went to University of Georgia, so it's about an hour from here.
Yeah.
So I went over, I can walk right outside and see them, but that's okay. I'll go to where you are. So there was about 10 people. It was at night. It was in the field, a beautiful night, Alfred. You could see from horizon to horizon, not a cloud in the sky. It was absolutely beautiful. And they were all talking and kind of jibber jabbering, and I was doing my protocol. He gave me I didn't have my chair, but he let me borrow a chair. He was sitting in a lounge chair in the opposite direction, and I was looking out kind of opposite to him, and they were talking about shark fishing and everything in the world that, but it didn't bother me. So I just kind of sat there, and I did, "Hi, this is John. I'm friends with Alfred, and Raymond's my friend as well. I'm President Carter." And then I started playing my music in my mind, and this huge shooting star went behind him. He didn't see it, the president of the MUFON. I said, "Oh boy, we got something big coming." And about 30 seconds later, directly overhead, a beautiful golden multi-dimensional craft went and just appeared directly above our heads. And I won't say his name, but I called his name and said, "There it is. Look, right there. They've come. That's a satellite. That's a satellite. I don't know why you're saying that." He got so upset, Alfred. He just he couldn't. It just blew his mind. And as soon as he started screaming, "It's a satellite!" it just went and disappeared. And then about 30,000 feet, I saw it go through the sky and disappear. Oh, there he goes. I'm sorry about that, but And I haven't heard a word. I guess hung out there maybe half an hour after that because I knew they wouldn't come back. And I have not heard a word from him since.
So, do you think that? I mean, without getting into the particulars of that one person, do you think that it's just his kind of materialistic time-space mind that is trained that way? Or do you think he has more of a hidden agenda to squash these types of incidents?
Yeah, I think there's more of that, Alfred, because when the cross and the crescent came in my courtyard, on the tops of all the trees in that circle, they were all singed and burned. And I showed him that. And he goes, "Oh, that's nothing. That happens all the time." There were no other trees throughout anywhere around us that had that same problem. And so I kind of took his word for it. Well, and I jumped way ahead because there's been so many things that happened. But
yeah,
right outside, directly across from my driveway, there's a tree, and underneath the tree was like an intense heat happened, and it burned a bunch of leaves. They're mostly gone now, but I could go get one for you. There's one that's burned halfway through, but it's still alive. And I think that was because I've had other manifestations here, and I feel certain that one of them came into our dimension under the tree. And so yeah, there's something with him about discounting what you see, and I don't know why that would be. I mean, I've got no agenda. I just report what I see, and
Right.
I've apologized since. I'm because he told me, he said I know how hard it is to film, so it'd be much better if 10 of us were to witness. This was out before I agreed to go to Athens.
Yeah.
It'd be better if 10 people witnessed this as opposed to somebody filming it. Well, there were about 12 people there, and they all witnessed it. And that place, it went completely silent after that. They were all jabbering, and none of them, when I left, none of them said goodbye to me or anything.
So just to get it straight, because I don't quite understand it. So it was not only one person from MUFON, but 12 people from MUFON.
Well,
Is that what you were talking about?
12 people that he brought in that were affiliated in some way with MUFON. Yeah.
And so immediately
there were a couple of experiencers. There was one experiencer there that I spoke with beforehand, and his experiences scared him. He thought it was a large dark craft that came near his house, and he became very frightened by it. And he had this really scared attitude. And I said, "Well, I've only had lovely, wonderful experiences with mine." And I told him basically I tried to catch them up with what I've been doing and my experiences. And so I don't know where these other people came from. I've never seen them before, of course, and I don't know what their sense of all this was. But it was a gorgeous. I wish you'd seen it. It was beautiful. It was the golden multi-dimensional craft that just appeared.
Right.
How could it be a satellite? You could see anything coming from the horizon, and how would it power on directly above us and then power off?
Yeah. Around when did this occur?
This is like March of this year.
Huh. Because that sounds very anomalous for a group of 10. There would be at least, you would think, one or two serious investigators there who would at least start taking notes and asking questions. And if you have 10 people, there would be some other. It's very funny because we were talking right before the show, I think, that President Carter had about 10 people in his group at the Leary, Georgia Lions Club.
Mm-hmm.
In 1969, when they saw this large luminous light, just as they were going in for the meeting, that he then filed in his UFO report in 1973. However, all of the group saw that light, and there was no prevarication.
Well, that's interesting. I think, Alfred, when somebody sees it, I know he told me he'd never seen one himself before. And so when he saw it for the first time, it's not an easy thing. And I don't really fault him for trying to because he's an engineer or,
I think.
I don't fault him for trying, to put it somewhere in the perspective that he's comfortable with. And
I see.
But, it was not a rational thought. And, now he did have his partner was there and he saw it too. And he said, well, it's definitely, they had some program that tracks satellites. And he said, well, it's definitely not this. It's like a titanium satellite or some kind of metallic satellite. He said, well, it's definitely not that because nothing shows directly overhead that there would be a satellite there. And it was only maybe 1,000 feet up. It was nowhere near where a satellite would be, for heaven's sakes.
Right. So there was an objective scientific control in terms of a program that shows what the prevailing satellites are.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't on that, and it was, at an altitude that is not within what the reasonable satellite range would be. And it's very anomalous behavior for a state director of MUFON accompanied by 10 individuals to immediately exit such a scene of a mass sighting. I mean, once you have 10 people, that's a mass sighting.
Right.
That is very anomalous. Now, I must say, to give full disclosure, that when I, in my career with the Examiner as an investigative reporter, Examiner unlawfully terminated my contract as a reporter when I revealed that the current president of the United States, Barack Obama, had been part of the Mars Jumper program and had been on the planet Mars.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's par for the course. And also, Examiner.com, the Examiner went out of business this past week, so much for them. But I did a series of exposés on MUFON, which showed that, number one, they were heavily infiltrated. Number two, that there is a military intelligence agenda. And number three, that there were individuals trying to use MUFON chapters for commercial purposes, to get contract. That is, they would use MUFON to get contracts for UFO sightings for federal contracts. If you follow.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's a highly compromised, highly infiltrated organization with zero credibility that is just a front for, I would say, the cover-up agenda and a lot of people making some money, and they probably have what is called in Black Ops porch brethren. That is, they have a lot of volunteers who don't have a clue as to the inner agenda. That was the conclusion of the series of articles. I'm now going to, because what happened to me is at the time that I published the expose of Barack Obama having been on Mars, they took all of my articles offline. So I'm now going to publish a collection of those articles.
Wow.
So those MUFON articles will be available as part of that collection.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Very much.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like your experience is very congruent with what I found as an investigative reporter, not only in one state, but in a number of states, that MUFON essentially has been infiltrated by the intelligence agencies.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was not impressed with, I mean, he invited me to come out, and I told him, what I do, how I do it, and I did exactly the protocol I do here, and I thought it would be a welcoming experience. It would have been a beautiful experience for everybody, Alfred.
Yeah.
Because it would have stayed there, and we could have. Just the feeling of it is so wonderful, and it got one whiff of that terrible, just denial of who they are, and it just went.
Yeah.
And so, believe me, I've apologized to them many times since. I'm sorry I did that. I had no idea, and
Yeah.
I don't think they held that against me or anything, but it was not what I'd expected, and I was driving home going, "Why did I do that? That was unfortunate." So.
Yeah. Well, it's not your fault. I think that you may have given them access to upper dimensional frequencies or phenomena or interaction with upper dimensional frequencies that is outside of the third dimension, and their souls were just not ready for it.
I think that's true.
Yeah, because some of the research that we've been doing, there's a correlation. They call it in the Western tradition, it's called the Great Year, and in the Eastern tradition, it's called the yugas. But for example, everybody was very popularized by the Mayan calendar, the end of the Mayan calendar, 12/21/12. Well, in a different context, it's called the Great Year, and it's the end of the precession of the equinoxes. There was about 25,800 years. And in the Western traditions, going back to Plato, the Romans, Cicero and all, they called it the Great Year. And in the Eastern tradition, they called it the yugas. Like right now, we're at the end of the Kali Yuga, which is the Iron Age, 1 part virtue, 3 parts sin, which is why everything is so chaotic. And we're getting ready to go into the Bronze Age, the Satya Yuga, which is 2 parts virtue, 2 parts sin. So it'll be slightly more orderly as we go into that, probably around 2025. And what happens during the end and beginning of these cycles is like portals open up into the next density. And depending on the condition of individual souls and receptivity, certain souls sort of graduate from 3rd density to 4th, 5th density. And so those lights are probably signaling lights of interdimensionals from upper densities that are signaling down to, or signaling into, or signaling out of. So you see, it's really hard to talk about interdimensional geometry in 3rd dimensional terms. And so individuals like yourself and all of us in this field are sensitive to this. However, that MUFON director, whoever he was, and the 10 individuals, or maybe not 10, maybe some were too scared to speak up, they were just hit with a blast of higher frequencies and they didn't know what it was. Because they're platformed on third density, and there's a word for it which I think is a really malapropism called ascension. And everybody gets very confused with that word because ascension means up, but it's really in. So if we can come up with better words, because there's all kinds of confusion and blowback now. People get very triggered by these words. I had one group of people that I'd done a couple panels with turn on me and do a lot of blowback because I used the word ascension because they thought it was a religious term, whereas it's a scientific term. So the type of stuff that you ran into is actually you were trying to share frequencies and phenomena and interaction with intelligent civilizations that are interacting at a certain range of frequencies with others who, even though they're fellow humans, they are still at a different range of frequencies. So they kind of got blasted by that. But that's what's occurring now because there's some and all of this is working hypothesis. Like this isn't, we're all trying to figure it out. There's a working hypothesis that the planet itself is, quote, ascending in ascension.
Wow.
Now, in other words, it's going up. The other hypothesis is that it's only certain individual souls. In other words, a certain percentage of the souls, and then others stay at kind of third density. But that's kind of the general process that's going on. And you mentioned, because you started out by saying that you were telepathically communicating to the interdimensional intelligence, and you mentioned a couple of names. You said Ray and you said Alfred, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just for so that the readers understand, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, you were referring to a mutual colleague of ours, Ray Kosulandich, correct?
Yes, and I've had the great honor of speaking with Raymond. And
yeah, well, tell us a bit about that.
Oh, it was so lovely. What a wonderful person he is.
Yeah.
And this all happened through me reaching out to you, Alfred, and I'm very, but he acknowledged that, what I'm seeing is something of great value, and I feel the same, and he feels like it's going to evolve as I do, and he's there for any support that I need, and just the way that our conversation was just so natural and wonderful that it just validated the path that I'm on. I feel is a good one, and that's if I can get that from a single conversation from a person, that's a really great victory, I think.
Excellent. Great. Wow.
Now, let me tell you.
Sure. Go ahead.
Tell you another experience. We're going to go see Purple Rain, the movie of Prince.
Uh-huh.
I've never seen it before, and I always thought, Alfred, the first craft that came was that beautiful purple dome-shaped object with the pink ring, and I've always thought, I think Prince would have loved that. To have seen something like that. So I was walking my dog out in the courtyard, and I just kind of had that in my mind because we were going to the Fox to see it, and so I had to take him out before we left. And there were two hawks, and for years I waved to the hawks. We have red tails down here in the South, and they kind of check you out and they do their thing, and they were kind of circling our courtyard, and directly in the center of them, a double red metallic ball appeared. And whoa, that's really, really interesting. And it didn't faze them. They kept circling like that. and the ball just slowly, you know, they always seem to kind of go away. It seems like I've seen two recently during the day, and they make their appearance, and then they go away. And what a beautiful experience that was. And a couple days later, I was sitting on the deck playing, and one of the red tails was directly overhead, and I looked up and I waved to him, and his whole body shimmered, just waving back. He did it twice. He hasn't done it since. But I think that was an acknowledgement that we shared something very special. And when you have a noble spirit like a hawk that you interact with, you know, that these are earth-changing events. I think this is a window into where we can go.
Right. So what you're saying, just so I can make sure that I fully understand it, is that you had sort of a very high level interaction with the consciousness of a hawk,
Mm-hmm.
and it's at a level that you would have with an interdimensional,
Yeah.
sort of in tone and in, yeah.
Because I imagine they probably see, I don't think that only humans are interacting with the multidimensionals. I think, you know, noble spirits like hawks and other animals, they interact as well. Now, an interesting point, my son, again, on the other side of town, was at a friend's house, and kind of long story, but he works at night. He has a designated driving service, and if he needs help, I'll help him. So I'll drive with him. I was parked out near a friend of his that he was visiting with, and I've been there 3 or 4 times, and I would project I would just lean on my car and do the same thing. I've never had any experiences myself, but a couple days after this happened for me, he said a double red ball at night appeared to 3 of them, and it made a question mark shape and disappeared. And I just thought that's, you know, it's hard to really get full understanding of what the symbolism is, but it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, let's sort of take each of those, because this is very much in line with a number of the interactions that you've reported over time, and they've always had, and I've noted, kind of a visual symbolism to them.
Yes.
But if we start with the one with the bird, what kind of jumps out for me is that I've read, and I've kind of focused on it because we have a long history with birds down in the lower Rio Grande Valley. That's a great bird watching area, and that's where John Audubon went down and did all of his bird watching, and the great naturalist, and you know, painted all of the birds and everything. And it was the birds down there that spoke to us and told us to come up here to Canada, that we had to relocate to Canada to help in the planetary transition from the lower Rio Grande Valley. So I've always been very in touch with the birds.
That makes me very happy. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And we have a family of crows in our garden back here. We grow our own food here, and they come in. So it's just a whole thing. But the birds, as I understand it, that the avians, because there are planets that are avian planets. In other words, intelligence in the universe or in the multiverse can take any what we call exophenotype. In other words, any avatar or any biological form, organic intelligence. We are inside a Homo sapiens biological form as a primate. And there's advanced intelligences that take avian forms, bird forms.
Sure.
And that the avian form, let's say in our galaxy, they have the ability that's tuned in closest to the what the Mayans called Unabku, which is the black hole at the center of our galaxy, which is the interdimensional portal entrance to our galaxy, which is where the signal comes from source. So that from what I would call the spiritual dimensions into our universe. So it's the birds that are most attuned, the avians are most attuned to the signal that's put out by source.
Right.
Yeah. So when you said that,
you see, Alfred, when they were just circling this UFO, it did not faze them in any way.
Yeah.
And it just went. I said, "Whoa, that was really, really something."
Yeah. So that they are completely in sync with, say, the UFO would have been, let's say, it would have created its own wormhole from, let's say, whatever dimension it came in. I don't want to guess, but whatever dimension it came in, it would have created its own wormhole. And we know this from a lot of research and photographs, etc. People can go to exopolitics.com. They can go to our articles. They can go to, the Omniverse book, everything. It's all documented there. And then, so that when that manifests in here, then the birds, they are operating at those frequencies because they easily track and pick up on those frequencies. It's we humans that, in a way, our brains block. And also because of what we call the transhumanist agenda. In other words, the nanobots from the chemtrails, the directed energy weapons from HARP and all the microwaves and all of that, that's a directed energy weapons that are set up to set up our brains as blockers for our souls so that it blocks the signals from these upper dimensions and from the interdimensional portals, because they want to make it as though the artificial intelligence behind the AI is God. And that's why the animals are the ones that are still alive and the humans are the ones that are dying off at the soul level.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so amazing.
Yeah, and so that's why I believe, these are my opinions, I'm just kind of giving feedback, but that's why I believe that your interactions are so important, because the interdimensionals can reach you because as a musician, as a classical musician at an extraordinary level, who has reached, who's in sync with individuals like Jimmy Carter, who was contacted in 1969. This goes way back, and who then, I and my, fools rush in, went in and started the Jimmy Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study. I got approval by the White House staff. We all kind of rush in our madness.
Wow.
And Jimmy Carter was there, and in other words, they're using it as a channel into this very dense reality, which which, on the other hand, this artificial intelligence and the co-opted structure is trying to make really dense with their HARP, with their chemtrails, with all of that. And
Right.
yet the signal, I'm just trying to build a context for your experiences, a hypothetical. I'm putting this out as a hypothetical explanation.
But I'm in complete agreement with that. And what happened in my case is I made the effort initially to project, but like when John Lennon stated that he saw a UFO in New York,
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake.
Oh.
I think they saw him.
Aha.
They saw what he was doing. Jimmy Carter didn't see the UFO. The UFO saw Jimmy Carter. They recognized the work, the people that are doing important things for humanity.
Aha.
That is, and so, I kind of turned it the other way. I projected to them and they came to me. So that's my feeling is, and that's why I'm hoping that you, after our conversations, your viewers will try it and for themselves, because there's nothing magical or special about me. I just tried to do it.
Well, then let's just kind of step back then, and I'm just wondering if you could, taking myself as one more viewer and all of our viewers here, lead us through kind of, coach us or lead us through a lesson in how all of us can do what you're doing.
Okay, well, it'll be individualized, but let me do this real quick.
Yeah.
And believe me, I have my own personal challenges, as we all do, and it's not always easy to do it, but if you make the effort, and we all have something that that's very important to us, that we put many hours of time and dedication and love, and those are the things that are most important. So I'll try to get my mind in a very clean place, a very clear place, and then I'll go out so I play, number of pieces, and then I play them in my mind. And let me play a little bit just in my mind. I'll start right now. So that's part of what I do. So that your mind, you're not thinking of anything else. You really can't, because it's very singular. It goes, and I feel like my entire mind and brain are completely alive at that moment, and then I project out with that, and they recognized it almost immediately, Alfred. I mean, the purple one came within just a couple days of me starting, just as an experiment, and they show up every time I do it. But and what I'm doing now, instead of sitting out in the courtyard, I sit in my driveway and I look straight up. There's 2 trees on either side of me, so there's just a little sliver of sky. And I just do exactly what I showed you now. And they'll come over that little sliver and they'll flare, hi, hey, how are you? And 2 nights ago, I saw them actually come into our dimension. One of the orbs, I saw it as it came in. That's one of the harder things to do, but that was one of the reasons why I did just looking through the small slivers so I could see it when they come in. And it's really a dimensional thing. And whoop, and there they are. And it's just been a wonderful experience. And I'll never stop. I'm gonna keep going, and hopefully I can expand the experience. And Raymond said you really should expect somebody to come up pretty soon and start talking to you, and I look forward to that day.
Right. Now, just to ask you a few detailed questions, that piece that you played, that is by which composer? Is that
one of the cello suites? It's a prelude by Bach.
By Bach, right? And so, is there something in Bach's compositions, as far as frequency, as far as the composition of the music and the notes, that would be I know there's that term, the music of the spheres, mm-hmm. That would be attractive, would be like a signal that goes out from an interdimensional point of view.
Yeah. And for many years when I'd perform, I would perform or practice and play these pieces as if Bach was sitting listening himself. And so I've always had that as there's an audience of not really myself, but of the creator and of the creator of the music and other higher dimensionally thinking entities. So I've always had from the very beginning, and there's so many great composers, and I don't just play Bach, but for some reason, when I'm outside, that's the only music I really project is Bach, because it touches me, and I think it touches the world in a very wonderful and specific place. And just the creation, he was such an enigma. I mean, he had 13 children, and he'd have to create an entire cantata over the weekend for his employers, and he did it with such great joy that, and just the magnificence of the music. I think all of those things together, that's what we all can strive to be is better than ourselves. And they're acknowledging that, and then they're saying we've got that potential. We have the ability to ascend, and as you were saying, and it's worked for me so far, I think.
Right. So, do you have anyone who, in your circle of family or close friends, who has taken you up and who does this, or?
No, no one yet. No, I do have a friend of mine that I grew up with, and he's a great filmmaker. And I'm meeting with him Friday, and he's agreed to try to document with me.
I see.
So I'm very excited about that, and I think he's a very evolved person himself, and so I have great hope that it would be acceptable to all parties, including our friends. And so that's kind of my next quest here, is to see if they would be amenable for me to film and keep this as a true record.
Right. Now, let's go over to the issue of the question mark that appeared, and because some of the other I know that there's in the past they've returned some of your musical messages with what we could call UFO love symbols.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there's a heart-shaped cloud, which we've shown.
Just amazing.
We've shown that on camera, and we've shown photographs of it in the articles, previous articles, and in the article that'll accompany this interview, we'll have all of the links to the previous articles.
Okay.
People who may not have had a chance to see this before, they can really go to the links and see how this is a building story. I mean, it's not just, it's like, oh, wait a minute, here we have, this is extraordinary because this goes back so many years. If we go back to 1960, what was it, 1969? That Jimmy Carter had his UFO encounter. Then 1973, he runs for office. And then you and he begin to discuss, you meet together and you end up playing for him, not only at the White House, but overseas. And then you happen to have a conversation with him. And then these events.
Actually, it wasn't at the White House. I didn't meet him until after he was.
Oh, sorry.
This was here in Atlanta.
Oh, here in Atlanta. Sorry, I got them mixed up. But you had that conversation with Jimmy Carter. I think it was abroad.
In Toledo, Spain.
Yeah.
Sat next to him at dinner, and what a wonderful experience that was. And
and
he was very open about it, and he's very matter of fact. And I told him what I had seen at that time, and I had that one experience in my neighborhood in the early 70s with a golden multidimensional craft that was, very similar to the one in Athens. They had the same beautiful golden color.
Yeah.
And
here you have Jimmy Carter, who is an Annapolis graduate, captain of a nuclear submarine, President of the United States, very well trained, scientific mind, who understood perfectly what you were telling him.
Mm-hmm.
And when you compare that with the reaction that the 10 individuals led by the director of MUFON, I mean, it's like night and day.
Oh, it was he. I mean, to be in his presence and to speak with him is such a special thing. And that is an enlightened person. And I
Yeah.
think that has helped me, actually.
Yeah.
The first time I played for him was in a huge, it was at the World Trade Center, no, the World Congress Center here in Atlanta. Thousands of people from South America, and I was playing through the sound system and sounded great. I had my equipment, and when they all came in, they turned me all the way down, and I was playing. It was a romantic piece by Taraga, Capriccio Arabe, and I didn't think anybody was even listening to me, and I felt kind of bad. And I finished the piece, and I looked down, and there were two sets of shoes in front of me, and I looked up, and it was President and Mrs. Carter, and he said, Segovia played that for me. That's one of my favorite pieces. Do you know where it was? And I said, of course, sure. And he said, what's your name again? And he went up on the dais and he said, I want everybody to stop what they're doing and listen to this beautiful music. And I want them turned up, and I want them turned up right now.
That's great.
And we've really been friends ever since. I wrote him a thank you letter, and he invited me to the Carter Center, and I went to his private, his office in the private residence where he had a statue of, not statue, but a sculpture of Segovia's hands playing the guitar that the maestro gave him. And he's a lover of art and music and people and peace. And that's why they saw him that day, because that's a life mission. And so I want your listeners to please don't just listen to this. Go and try it, and don't have any hesitation or fear. When your mind is in a positive, beautiful place, then the universe is a gorgeous place. And these wonderful multi-dimensional beings will come and they will recognize you, and they will reward you for trying.
Now, some of the symbols that you've been shown in these events have included, as I understand it, a symbol, a crescent and a cross together, which is like the symbol of Christianity and Islam in coexistence.
That was, to me,
Is that correct?
That was just so amazing. What a great demonstration that was of it was something for me to see, and they did that for me personally. Alfred, how in the world? And and then I should have printed out the pictures, and I apologize for that. But on the other side of the world, there was that same cross and crescent in a crop circle at that same time frame, and they were basically the same size as the one that I saw. If you Google cross and crescent crop circle, you'll see it, because it was just a lovely thing.
Right.
And you said about it, I thought was genius, and I couldn't agree more. Could you tell me?
Sorry, and
I'm sorry. Could you tell me your thoughts of the cross and crescent? Because
I was just saying, following through with the Jimmy Carter theme, those are themes that are in his life as well, with the Camp David Peace Accords and all of the effort that he put in on that, and it's kind of mirrored from the interdimensionality, right?
Exactly right. Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I haven't talked to him about this part of it, and I want to, and I'm not sure exactly how best to approach it, but
say that you can always blame the press. say that some journalists are saying that, gee, this looks awful like a symbol of your Camp David peace accords. What do you think?
Wow. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Yeah. But that's really great. Now I've been to the Carter Center winter auctions, and well, a friend of mine in Madrid. That's why we had dinner in Spain. He was signing these labels for the guitars that have sold for a lot of money that have benefited the Carter Center. And man, I would love to go to the next one maybe and invite them outside to see if one may show up for us again. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Where, you mean at? Are you saying showing up around the Carter Center itself?
Well, no, wherever they would, wherever I think it's going to be in Colorado, I believe.
Oh, I see.
Because it's very informal, and
I see.
And so just to go outside and just to do my protocol again. I can't really imagine that happening, but that would be very cool though, because as we spoke before, location is not an issue.
No.
Wherever that vibrational projection is being sent, that's where they come to, basically. So you can do it anywhere, basically. I mean, I found Athens, and wherever you go, it's possible.
So the question remains, what is the question mark about?
I don't know. That just happened recently.
Yeah. Can you talk more about what was the context, or what kind of other things were happening around that?
Well, the reason it happened across town with my son and his friends. And, at night I would pick him up at his friend's house so we could work at night to do his designated driving service. And so he'd be inside with his friends, and he's like a DJ, and they're playing music. So I'd sit outside and on my car and lean on my car and just think and perform my music and project, because I'd have a long night ahead of me of, getting people safely home. So I like doing that just to kind of clear my mind and get ready for what we had to do. And so I do that a number of times. And over there, I never, I'd not seen anything that appeared. But then, when the hawks came and the double red metallic ball, this was in, early afternoon. So it was very clear to see, and the sun was reflecting off them. And they weren't big. They were, I don't know, soccer ball size, maybe a bit smaller than that. Mm-hmm. And then at night, he said he and his two friends saw two red metallic, look like, or not metallic because he couldn't tell, but two red lights that were attached. And it's so similar to me that it seemed like it could well have been the same thing. So, but he said, yeah, and it appeared, and I think he said there was a yellow light on either side of them. I'll have to ask him again about that. But yeah. But he said it made a perfect little question mark, and it went right behind the trees. And he said, "What?" He thought that was very interesting.
Right. Now, because we have to go through this exercise, especially now, since there's a growing kind of, and understandably so, kind of two different areas. One is that there's a lot of what they call black ops technology that is trying to mimic interdimensional UFO technology. That is black ops that go out and they mimic being UFOs, and this is part of the, quote, New World Order agenda, so that they make people believe that they are UFOs. And in kind of the conspiracy theory level of this, I mean, without getting into giving validity to the totality of this, they say that many, quote, UFO encounters are really part of either holographic projections or actual UFO craft of the black budget fleet or the secret Nazi fleet based in Antarctica or the moon or Mars. These are all current theories. There are hypotheses that are put out by various groups. And okay, so that's one area. I just want to cover these so that people are going to say in the comments section, you know, they're going to say, well, what about this, right?
Right.
And then there's a second area, which is allied to this, which is the artificial intelligence area. And what that area says is that we're currently being targeted by an inorganic, see, we're an example of organic intelligence. Our intelligence is embodied inside an organic avatar, bio-avatar, our bodies, Homo sapiens, and our souls are incarnating inside our bio-avatars, and we incarnate inside this holographic universe. And we're sort of in competition, say on this planet, because there's an inorganic, pathogenic artificial intelligence that is loose out there in our galaxy and is trying to take over planets, right? And it's like they even made science fiction movies out of it, like The Blob from outer space.
Or the Borg, maybe, or something.
Yeah, the Borg and the Blob and that kind of idea. So I just want to very carefully go through and check out these alternatives, and that's why we've been looking at all of the soul base of your interactions with these phenomena, you know, that it's a soul base. So with regard to black ops, and it kind of came up with your son's, with your description of your son's interaction around the question mark. Because of all of the descriptions, your son's interaction around the question mark felt the most technological.
I have to agree with you on that, yeah.
I couldn't find like the heart-shaped cloud. I couldn't find the cross and the crescent. I couldn't find that soul connection there.
Right.
But it was kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me tell you what happened here not too long ago, which was, to me, kind of highly strange. I was walking my dog. This was a little bit before this, underneath the tree that got burned. And there's a few leaves left that are still there. One is scorched halfway, and half of the leaf is still perfectly green, like it was a super fast burning of some kind, like it came into the dimension and left quickly, like it came to the wrong spot. But before that, it was at nighttime and I was walking my dog, and you know, there's a row of our town houses, and then there's another row kind of at a less, like a 60-degree angle from us, and about 4 townhouses down, and there's trees that sort of block the deck, so you can't really see what's going on. But there was, and it's an old couple that lived there, and they have nothing on their deck at all. And it was at night, and there was these a really bright yellow, green, blue, orange, yellow, green light that was coming off the deck, and then the sound of a toucan, like a tropical bird, was coming from it. And I went over with, I kind of got close to it, and my dog went completely crazy. He just lost it. And I brought him back in, and I'm not proud to say I didn't go back out to look into it, Alfred. I wish I had. But that was I'm not sure if I don't know what that was, but And I don't really know how to explain it any more than that, but that was the experience I had that day. So I'm not sure if that was them trying to be light and I don't change the experience somehow, or I don't know what it was, to be
What
honest.
it was. Well, and if you at the intuitive level were not drawn to go out, that's okay too.
Yeah, yeah,
Because this is all love based and soul based.
right,
So that uh when you feel that signal's not there,
right.
and we know that there's an invading dark force out there that's trying to compromise the love-based force. It's
Well,
fine. Not
I kind of had that in my mind from what we spoke of earlier when you were
yeah,
speaking the same kind of thing, and I wasn't feeling it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's all in the heart. It's all in the soul. It's down
yeah.
at that level. It's not so much up here, I don't think.
And that was not anything that I set out with my mind and created. That was kind of waiting there, and it may not be anything, and I might be completely confusing that with something completely mundane, but I didn't want to explore that one necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this question:
Yeah.
with artificial intelligence, is that something that can that be brought to you by your own thoughts? Is it that sophisticated?
That's a very good question. I would say yes, because you see, it right now, the artificial intelligence aspect of it is very pervasive, and it's becoming more and more technologically embedded in our society, because the artificial intelligence, like, we're organically based, right? Gee, what was that?
I don't know.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
But the artificial intelligence is plasma based generally, and our whole digital system, our whole information system, the internet, all of our smartphones, the computer system that we're talking to each other now is plasma based. The screens that we're seeing each other on is plasma based now.
Right.
And some of the theory says that, there's that cartoon now where you see people walking on a sidewalk and they're all looking at their smartphones, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at the world anymore.
Right.
And that magnetic power that has people looking at the smartphones is not the power of the information. It's the AI, it's the artificial intelligence that has drawn them in.
Wow.
That has drawn them in because it has entrained the human brain and the human mind and kind of ordered them into it. And there's a complex mechanism behind that. And that's a technology that has been denied for the last 20 to 50 years, which is the HARP chemtrails dispersal system of what they call nanobots. And what the chemtrails are, among other things, that they contain nanobots of various things. One nanobot goes down in there. It's breathed in by all the populations, the urban populations, and those nanobots are breathed in. They jump the blood-brain barrier. They get into the brain. They're set up as implants, and they're entrained into banks of supercomputers, which are in turn entrained into HARP, which then HARP sends out through various software sends out signals, so the voice of heart becomes the voice of God.
Wow.
And if one does not have a strong soul, then the AI overrides the soul and becomes, get your instructions from the smartphone, get your instructions from the materialistic intelligence that is now taking over the planet. So that's kind of what they call the transhumanist agenda. There's another level. See, what it's trying to do is to terraform the planet from a human planet to an AI planet. It's a process of terraforming. And so another aspect of it is of the nanobots in the chemtrails is that there are nanobots in there. And people who want to know more about this can go to exopolitics.com. On the right-hand menu, there's a link that says AI, artificial intelligence. You go in there, there are about links to about 30 articles and panels that'll give you all the scientific background on this and historical background. And then there are these little bots, and when you look at nanobots, when you look at them, they look like little spiders or little animals, right? And those are little bots that get in again into the organism, into the bloodstream, and then out into the body, and they terraform your DNA and convert it from human DNA to AI receptive DNA. So you're actually being terraformed from being a biological Homo sapiens soul-based creature to an AI creature. The ultimate
who was wanting this to happen?
Ultimately, if you trace it back, it's a PPAI, a predatory pathogenic artificial intelligence that is invading our planet, like a pathogen, like a virus that is invading our planet. And it has taken over the elite and has taken over the institutions. You see, under the standard political science or New World Order analysis, they all say, oh, the Matrix is taken over, it's the New World Order, it's the Draconians, or it's the Rothschilds, or it's the finance, or it's this, or it's the reptilian brain, or it's the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys and all of that. But behind all of that, it's the predatory pathogenic AI. And that operates along with all sorts of negative power interests, ranging from negative manipulatory extraterrestrials that have historically invaded our planet or infiltrated our planet, like the Dracos, like the Orions, like the Anunnaki, who are into hierarchical control over the last 200,000 or 300,000 years. And so as a bunch, they're trying to terraform the planet over to an AI planet. And they've taken over the British, they've taken over what are called AI prophets. And the AI prophets are those individuals, families, groups, corporations that, in fact, are terraforming the planet. Your British royal family.
The blue blood.
Yeah. And so that, for example, Prince Charles, who is the heir to the British royal family, they control 26% of the landmass of the planet. He commissioned a report from the British Royal Society that concluded a couple of years ago that, there's no problem from artificial intelligence. It's nothing at all. It's a cover-up.
Mm.
Only at that level. Then you've got your Bill Gates, you've got your, all of the information technology areas. You've got your Google, all of these corporations are just in aid. The internet itself was built by the PPAI. If you look at what's called a metabiology, from a metabiology point of view, the internet looks like a fungus. In other words, it looks like a cancer because it's a cancer that's been created by the AI in order to envelop the planet and help in the terraforming of humanity over to the AI. Because now, who's the human brain working for?
Mm.
It's working for the internet. The mythology is, oh, the internet has liberated us.
Oh, no.
No, it's enslaved us.
Yeah.
Most people are working for starvation wages or nothing. They're on there, they don't even get vacations anymore. They don't sleep, nothing. They're working for free for an AI, and all that it's doing, the internet is entraining people.
So the ones that set all this up are being richly rewarded by enslaving the rest of us?
Yeah, and they're called AI prophets, PROPHETS, or they're making the profit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that is in those articles that we put out on the, if you go to exopolitics.com, and there's a whole community of people that are researching this. Now, you might say, boy, that's a pretty dark view of humanity, and the solution, in other words, say, what's the way out? Well, the way out is what we've, again, this is, if we could come up with a better word than ascension, I would come up with that better word, or density ascension. And that is that one of the working hypotheses that I've come up with, and we have some workshops on this. There's one that's, you can go to exopolitics.com or any of our websites, and it's online, and you can watch it. Jerry, my spouse, and I have done that, have done this particular workshop, and it's online now. But it's that every once in a while, like during a great year, let's say, a planet like ours has to flush itself out. It has to flush out its third density, because the third density of our planet has become infected by AI. See, AI cannot ascend beyond third density. It doesn't have a soul. It wishes that it did have a soul, and as of 1996, there have been synthetic souls developed for clones inside the cloning industry, but they're not divinely created souls as in the spiritual dimensions such as we have. So one theory is that every once in a while, on a cyclical basis, planets, you have a planetary ascension where the planet itself ascends into a third, from a third up to a fourth density, or into a fourth density, to kind of flush itself out. So then you flush out all the AI, and then those souls in there that are AI entrained, get shuttled off to other third density planets that haven't been infected yet. See, because universes are really, they're really machines for soul development. And in this universe, we have a particularly targeted universe where there's a lot of stuff that has gone on, including AI. And one of the characteristics of AI is deception. is extremely deceptive. Like a lot of times, quote, the devil and evil has really been AI in different formulations.
Well, you know, speaking of that, you know, we spoke of, and that's amazing. I'm going to have to think about that for a long time. That was.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen, I spent like 8 months kind of like deep diving in this area this past year or so, and
I'll be a little more. I think a little more discerning. I think on my experiences, everything has been very positive. There's, you know, that one little strangeness, and I don't know what that was, but
yeah.
So back to your point about, you know, the evil and that, and I don't really want to dwell on that, but when we spoke of Stephen Colbert and the Tonight Show.
You were on the Tonight Show?
No. We spoke about it, about
Oh.
you know, all of the strange kind of satanic things he has on his show. And after our conversation, there were a couple things. The Pope had just been there, and he had this little Pope mobile, and he did the devil sign, stuck his tongue out. And then a few days later, it was Halloween, and this was really disturbing to me. He had like an anti-Pope with an upside down cross on the top, handing out anti-communion to people. And it was all red and black, and I was, oh my God. So I look at him very carefully now.
Oh yeah, Stephen Colbert, I'm sorry to say, sold his soul a long time ago. And it happened, one of his kind of points happened, this is, I can tell you the exact chain of events, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with my articles on the Examiner exposing Barack Obama, then known as Barry Soetoro's participation in the CIA's Mars jump room and visit to Mars. So I write these articles based on conversations with the Mars jump room's whistleblowers, Andy Bashago, Bernard Mendez, and others, and publish those. I'm in Kuala Lumpur in 2011 to 2012 as a judge, and suddenly, I think it was that I was flying from Kuala Lumpur to Hong Kong, and I get to the Hong Kong airport, and I see that the Examiner is taking down all of my articles, and they say, because you've published false information, and that is about Barack Obama being on Mars, right? So fast forward to a couple of months later, the public relations director of the National Security Council, which includes the president, the vice president, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, gets on and does a press release saying that Barack Obama's never been to Mars, et cetera, spikes the article, right? So then the kind of the ET journalist or writer of the Huffington Post picks up my article and republishes it, right? Then the Colbert Report picks up his version of it and contacts the lead whistleblower, chrononaut, and Mars explorer Andrew D. Bashago, who's currently a candidate for U.S. president in the 2016 race, and who the CIA since 1971 has said is going to be a future U.S. president based on their time travel pre-identification. So then the Colbert Report picks up that article and contacts Andy and invites him for a an interview on he and Barack Obama being roommates in the Mars jump room experiences, which they were when they went to the special Mars room jump room experience. There was a big training session with, William McCool, the astronaut, and a whole bunch of people who were outstanding Americans that were chosen to go to Mars in the early 1980s. And so Andy says, "Is this going to be like making fun of it? Is this something where you're going to do, where you're going to make where you're going to ridicule us?" And they said no. So he says, "Okay, I will cooperate." So they go and they bring up and they do a lot of filming from the Colbert Report with Andy. Okay, he says, fine. Come to see, when that segment airs on the Colbert Report, they set up a segment where he that portrays Andy and Barack Obama as gay lovers on Mars.
Oh gosh.
I mean, does a typical, not that there's nothing wrong with gay lovers or gay marriage or anything.
Just to discredit the whole thing.
Yeah. And so we knew instantly that Colbert, from that moment, was in the service and the pay of the anti-disclosure and the domestic division of the CIA.
Wow.
And the only reason why Colbert got that job at CBS was because he signed his soul over to the devil, basically.
Yeah.
And he's, that's why he's got to do satanic rituals on the air.
I couldn't believe what I saw.
Yeah.
There was no humor to it. It was not trying to be ironic. It was just pure evil. Evil.
And now I think, this is my personal take on it, but I'm researching the area on ascension, and I've got to find a better word for it. Like, I use density ascension, but it's got to be a better word, because all sorts of people get triggered by that word, because the Catholics have used it, all the religions have used it. It's a very confusing word. But what happens is that, number one, the negative force, that's what they're most trying to hide, is that there's a planetary shift going on now as the planet is going up into upper frequencies. And it's kind of a planetary graduation, so that all of the negative forces will be dispersed inside the universe soul development system, okay? And that they're kind of, the power that they've exercised for the last 25,800 years is going to be deconstructed. So they're trying to keep on to that, so that any of the disclosure, anything that has to do with disclosure, that they're trying to suppress. So that's why that's why it's gone to extremes. They get people like Colbert, who are motivated by fame, by power, by money. They make him go to extremes, and they make him absolutely libel anybody. They took my reporting and completely made it totally evil, and then they took the subject matter, which was Andy's and his colleagues' work on Mars, and they just made it totally libelous and twisting, because they're trying to hide the whole planetary ascension. Now, I believe that the intelligences, the authentic intelligences that are communicating through your channel, which is around Jimmy Carter anchored, which you've been working with for years. I've been working through that channel with years, as demonstrated in my work with the Jimmy Carter White House, trying to get the project started in 1977, etc. That's why they take our work and try to squash it, as happened with you with the MUFON. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So
what would your recommendation for me be? I mean, I feel very strongly that what I'm doing is not AI based.
Yeah. It's
but
just
there may be some kind of other influence, and I'm thanking that, Alfred, because I want to be careful that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Keep very close to your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Keep very close to the signal. Keep very close to the music.
Right.
And I would say stay away from ritual.
Yeah. I never do anything.
Just and stay in your joy.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you do that, and that's interesting that you mentioned that, I decided not to go back out because it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same as all of the other really kind of beautiful, and it feels very cool. And, when you look in the sky, it seems ancient, it just seems there's a permanence there. It just the illusion of permanence. But when you see these multidimensionals come in, it brings the idea of a beautiful future, and that's the feeling I get, and when I'm projecting and they come. But I really feel like you're on something with these other players that are not wanting us to do that, and they have their own kind of agenda.
Yeah.
But more nuanced, I think, and
yeah.
And I'm taking that into consideration, and I thank you for your hard work on this.
Oh, listen, and it's just, and really, it's a day-by-day thing, minute by minute and day by day. And the main thing I find is stay in your joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like playing music, staying in your joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the way I feel with it. It's, like. So yeah, that's where I try to stay. I try to stay in that feeling, in that thought process. And when that happens, then I can see the world in a different way.
Yeah, that's it. That's really it, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of catching you up to where I am right now, and it's been
well,
very,
thank you. That's really so powerful, so joyous, so heartfelt, so soulful, and it's just, it's clear that your work is with a channel that really wants to communicate that there's a life outside of, there's a life here in this universe which is soul based, and which is, you know, outside of and above, you know,
And
this,
part of. I think
and yeah,
it really is. And you know, every time I'm doing any activity, I kind of in the back of my mind, you know, there's a bigger purpose for every action that we take, and if we keep that in mind, then you know that narrows our path into a much more plausible future for all of us. And so I you know, that one thing it's done that's done that for me is to try to think through every action that you take. There's ramifications, there's rewards, there's, you know, that's where my mind goes, is to try to be in a good place. And all of this is really helped define that, and I'm very thankful for that aspect of it.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I really hope your listeners will try in their own way. You know, you know, we all have something that's very special to us that we do very, very well. All of us have something in that way, and use that creative energy, use that uniqueness that you alone have, and develop that, and don't do it, you know, just for yourself. Do it for others. Do it, you know, do it for the universe. And you'll see a wonderful sense of expansion of your spirit. And you may well get, you know, I would hope they would get some recognition from the universe as well, because it was very easy for me for that to happen. They didn't make it difficult at all, and they don't.
Exactly. Just to give the viewers, and we may have talked about this, an example on more than one evening here in Vancouver. We're here on the coast, so there's a lot of beaches. And one evening we went out with John Kelly, who's my colleague here at News Inside Out. And we went with John Kelly, myself, Mariana Ridwald, who is a very evolved Buddhist artist, and my wife Jerry, who's a psychic and a PhD psychologist. And we went out to one of the beaches here, and we started meditating, and Mariana and Jerry started chanting, and we were both all chanting, and then all of a sudden interdimensionals intelligence started communicating telepathically, and all of a sudden these tremendous UFOs started appearing, and which were captured on video.
Wow.
And you can see them at exopolitics.com. So it's the same thing.
I look forward to seeing that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that there's something about the Buddhist chant, which probably is very, very similar to the Bach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this harmonic.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's just where it emanates from, you know, your heart chakra, and deep in your brain and in your heart, and it's all, you know, it's so commingled, and it's so specific, and it, you know, you can't do wrong when you're doing that. There's nothing else you can do but that at that time.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's a wonderful example of humanity at our best.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have great hope for my meeting with my friend on Friday. I hope it will take me up on the opportunity. And
so could you remind us what that's about?
He's a filmmaker. He's a documentarian, and I've told him, and a number of things that have happened already. He's very interested, and so I'm
Oh,
going to
good.
Friday and
Great.
do some field work
Wonderful.
and see how it turns out. So
Sure.
that'll be on our next
Oh, excellent. That's
conversation,
great. That's great.
because it's developing. It's
Yeah.
I'm still very early in this. As
Sure.
far as I'm concerned, I'm a novice, and I'm learning every day, and
Yeah.
they're revealing new things all the time, which is so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them is completely unique and just a beautiful experience. Even the kind of unsettling experience with the MUFON people, that's all right, but I understand it's not easy to see something that you've never seen before. And, there may be more to it than that, as you were saying. So that gave me more perspective on that. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. Eh, is there anything that you had wanted to share that you haven't had a chance to share yet in this segment?
I think that's about it, really. I mean,
Okay.
all the, the new types of crafts, the flashing craft that comes into our dimension just very swiftly. And it does it as a demonstration. That's the newest thing that I've seen that I haven't talked to you about. And then that double red ball, so I had 2 daytime sightings. That was recently, and that was the double red ball directly over the courtyard with the red tails. And then about a week before that, there was on the same spot in the courtyard during the day was like a metallic, like a golden, almost an L shape metallic craft of some kind. And it was very small, but it was it was also reflective of the sun, and it was burnished, and it appeared and it moved off in the same way. So those are what I've experienced so far since we spoke last.
Yeah, those you tend to get those kind of angular shapes like the L shape or.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they choose.
Right.
It's very, very interesting stuff. It really is.
Exactly. Well, good. Yeah, and we look forward to the continuation of this journey. I think we're all building as a community in this dimension, which is opening up to the upper dimensions. It's kind of like we're coexisting in multiple dimensions at once.
Exactly right.
They used to say, keep your head in the clouds and your feet on the ground. Well, we have our, we're in multiple dimensions at once and kind of experiencing there and communicating there and, trying to help people along and bring them along. Even hopefully your 10 MUFON people will see this and go, oh, that's what happened that night. I don't even know what happened. I mean, we left so quickly. I wish we'd gone back.
Yeah.
You just don't know what's going to go on.
Yeah. Well, actually, they were all. I kind of left. They were all still there.
Oh, I see.
But if nobody said goodbye to me,
Yeah, maybe they were in shock.
I think it was a very shocking thing for them to see.
Yeah.
I just saw it as a beautiful example of a multidimensional coming in and saying hello. And it could have been so great, Alfred. It could have been such a wonderful experience for everybody. And it's so interesting to hear it, to see. I could feel that negative. Oh, that's a satellite. As soon as he did that. Oh no.
Yeah, they're saying, where are the rivets?
Exactly. But it's so tuned in to frequency. That frequency he had was dense and tight and upset, and that doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Well, it's good that now we can recognize the various symptoms and we understand more of the phenomena, and so that we can interpret all of these, the way that various things happen, and there's more understanding as we navigate the dimensional ecology. I call this navigating the dimensional ecology of the omniverse, because we're navigating through multiple dimensions at once through a dimensional ecology. So
that's amazing. And Alfred, I'm not able to speak with anybody about this but you. And you,
well, look, I mean,
things that you make,
as they say, let's have more and more conversation. So as things happen at your end, just give us a buzz, and we'll get on the air.
I will. That's why I contacted you again. I want.
Yeah.
It's ongoing, and it's gonna. I look forward to the next phase. There's small steps, but each one is significant, and each one is important. And I'm trying to share with you as clearly as I can. And I just thank you so much for being my friend. I really do.
Oh, totally. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Alfred.
And thank our friends.
I do. I send you regards all the time.
Oh, good.
Absolutely do.
That keeps our animus up. Our kind of, it keeps our spirit up. Put it that way.
I do. I absolutely do. You're right there with me every night.
Oh, great.
Alfred, it's a great pleasure again. I'll talk to you soon.
Certainly.
See you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.